Das ist der HSG Student Podcast. Mein Name ist Olli und zusammen gehen wir auf die Suche nach spannenden Geschichten und Persönlichkeiten von der HSG. Every time when I go to a museum, not that I'm the most, regular museum visitor, but anyways, every time I go to a museum, I have quite a hard time to understand what I see. I lack a lot of contextual knowledge, which, very often makes a difference between, I think, an ordinary piece of art and maybe a more exceptional one. You might now think, wow, that is a weird introduction into a podcast. But I'm very much convinced you will soon understand what I mean. And anyways, you already tuned in, so you must have had at least some interest in what's going to happen in the next couple of minutes. Today, we have the pleasure that we are going to do somewhat, a guided audio art and visual art tour. And hereby, I also would like to welcome all of you listening to this episode. For once, it's going to take place in English, as you can hear. And the whole setup of the podcast is going to be rather an experiment. And I'm also a bit nervous, I admit. With that being said, I'm excited to welcome you, Fabiano, to our podcast studio in Square. Hi, Fabiano.
Hey, nice to be here. And thank you for that also. Happy to be part of the experiment.
So, Fabiano, you are a student at HSG in the MIM, Master in Marketing Management, but I think you're way more a photographer and an artist than a student. Therefore, I thought that we will today talk a bit about, photography, Instagram, and especially about your photos. So, I chose some shots that I found particularly interesting and beautiful, I have to admit, and thought that I would first describe them to you, and you then subsequently, hopefully you will recognize them, and maybe you can tell, the story behind, your thoughts behind when you were making them. And this is then also the thing that I would refer to the guided audio art tour. And yeah, hopefully we can contextualize the pictures, the shots that will be found also on Instagram, on your Instagram, and make them somewhat, more understandable and exceptional. So what do you think about that plan?
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds like a plan to me.
Wonderful. So before I let you introduce yourself as well, I thought we would directly jump into one of the pictures. I all found them on your website or your Instagram. We will obviously link that to the description of this podcast. And yeah, the picture I chose first is a shot. It depicts a church in the middle. The church is very focused. It's like a white church with a black roof. There's a small black door. It's actually quite small. And it seems to be standing, on a hill, but the hill is quite shady, so black. And in the background, there's light. It seems to be like either a morning shot or an evening shot. So it's red, rather a bit Robbie-like light. So it's more, it's very a vivid atmosphere. Does it already ring a bell?
Yeah, of course. I know exactly which one it is. To contextualize a little bit, it's funny that you chose this picture actually because, I was convinced that I was a hiker before going into photography, which was obviously not the case. And it was actually one of my very first hikes in the Alpstein, nearby St. Gallen, so nearby my university. And it was actually the first one that I did while being at the university as a student. So yeah, we went with a bunch of friends, one of my best friends as well, who is also a photographer. And he wanted to show us a little bit the area since he was a student for more time than I was at the time. And we went for this hike. We slept in a small hut. I can't remember the name of it, unfortunately. But it was in the Alpstein. And so yeah, we woke up in the morning at maybe 4:30 in the morning. Obviously, I didn't sleep very good because like in those small huts, you are all crunched against one another.
And it's maybe cold and
exactly.
It's 4:30 in the morning.
And it was also in the end of September or beginning of November, if I remember correctly. So we went for a small hike in the morning and we went on the other side of a hill, just below the Sentis. And looking back, we saw the light coming from the sky getting red and, orangey, like very reddish. And when looking at the other side, we saw this church from the very far horizon. And I decided to, take this picture because I mean, it was also one of my first time that I was experiencing my new lens, photography lens, which was a 70-200, and I cranked it up all the way up to 200 millimeter just to take this shot, and then cropped in even more, like during a post production. So this one was actually one of my very first pictures from St. Gallen, and it was the beginning of a new era. So yeah.
Definitely a shot to remember, I think. And now you started your MIM, right? So would you consider that also as a new era that started? Because when you came here, for your bachelor studies?
To some extent, definitely. I feel like it's a much more creative direction than the bachelor that was more general. And I'm not really into maths, so which is a good thing for me because the MIM is not really into maths. I mean, you can choose to, but it's not my case. Yeah, I feel like it's much more creative. Everything is linked to brands, to marketing, to management, and this is what I'm aiming for also in my life.
Were you already, able to use your content creation knowledge in the master so far?
I mean, in the master, yes. In the we are in just a few weeks in, but I would say I had the chance already to put it like 2 times on practice, doing some basic video. That was the first thing.
Which seemed maybe for the others like a professional video, I think, right?
Yeah, we tried to replicate a keynote from Apple.
Yeah.
And it worked pretty well. I feel like the teacher liked this.
So I hope you're getting a good grade. And how would you say or describe is the content creator community at HSG? Because you have been here now for a couple of years. What is your suggestion or your take on that?
I feel like I was surprised at first because I didn't know, but like most of there were a few creators on the Swiss environment, on the content creation scene that they were a little bit legends to me. Like some had like 90K followers, for example. I mean, not that followers tell a lot about the creation talent, but it was funny because some of them were at HSG, and most of them I got to know them perfectly by chance at HSG. So I feel like HSG has quite some few content creators, yeah.
And you're one of them, right? So did you meet them when you were shooting together, or was it just at parties, or is there something like a community that meets regularly and maybe even exchanges ideas? Or
I would have loved to, but it wasn't the case. One of them I met him perfectly randomly at the fondue with some friends. Some of them I saw some stories of them like graduating, for example, or attending some courses, and I could recognize the building behind. So yeah, there's not a proper community in itself that is known to the public. So yeah, it was purely random, I would say.
Pretty cool. So we already got to know you briefly now, rather your photographic and your student side. And I thought, do you want to introduce yourself, who you are, besides describing photos in a podcast studio and besides talking about the master that just started and the content creation community?
Well, actually, I'm not used to introducing myself too much, from what I can tell. So I'm Fabiano Mancesti. My name, my brand, if I can tell it this way, is FabExplore. This is also my name on Instagram and all the various social media that I'm using. I'm a student, like you said, at the MIM, the Masters in Marketing Management at the University of St. Gallen. And I'm working, aside from that, I'm working in photography and filmmaking, freelance, and sometimes landing some jobs with brands and companies to help them create some better storytelling, hopefully.
Wonderful. So let us move on to the next story, the next picture. I'm trying to describe what it is, and as soon as you realize you got it, you shoot. So the next picture that I chose is again a building in the middle of the picture. I think it's on an island, I think, and it's rather not a church, but rather a house. Rather, do you say villa in English? I'm not even sure.
Villa.
Villa. And there's a lake in front. It's quite bright, so it's daylight, and there's a there's fog that just transcends from left to the right of the picture. In the middle, above the villa, and in the background, there's, I think, mountains, and the mountains start to have some snow. So it's like it's very interesting because it's a bit of a ghosty atmosphere because of the fog, but on the other hand, it's very clear. So should I move on? Do you already know something?
No, I know. I definitely know which one it is. And it's actually funny because like you're describing it as one photo that is on my profile, but actually I took it so many times that I can't remember the exact number. It's Iselwald, so it's a small place in eastern Switzerland.
It's correct, yes.
And I think this is a place that I regularly land onto because it's always on my return. How do we say this? It's always when I get back home. It's always one of the few points that I pass by, and it's actually a super interesting one. I feel like it's not that known in Switzerland, so I feel like it is known. It's part of it's kind of a influencer type of photo, but the place is very nice. There's not a lot of tourists. It's rather complex to attain by car. And it's not on every map. So I feel like it's a good spot to just rest a little bit. If you're coming from eastern Switzerland, for example, Graubünden, it's definitely one of the few places where you can chill a little bit and rest.
So you're even getting touristic advice here. Let me ask you also the question: have you been on the island? Did you check out the villa? Is it publicly available, or do you know that?
I'm not quite sure, to be honest. It's a really big white villa in the middle of the lake. I'm not sure. I think you can visit it for sure, but the village is quite cute as well. So you might as well definitely visit the whole village, not only the villa, because it's pretty of a interesting place. Let's say it this way.
So did I understand it correctly? This was rather a spontaneous shot, or I mean, you did multiple of them, but this one was maybe more spontaneous.
Oh, definitely, yeah. It's the kind of spot you just land there. You go back for a small walk around the lake, and you just face this beautiful view. And not doing a picture would be a crime at this point.
So, but you always have your camera with you then. Is it like your baby that you're carrying around all the time?
Indeed, my baby of 10 kilos with all the lenses is always on me whenever I feel like there's a possibility of taking pictures. To the greatest concern of my back, but mentally I don't feel like it's too much of a weight, considering the results that I can get pretty spontaneously as well.
And on your profile, I saw a lot of pictures, obviously. Actually, exactly 365. I found that funny at the moment. And but a lot of them are at night in nice weather, or when the weather is nice. Is there a particular reason behind why you always take pictures when it's when the weather is nice, or is it harder when you take pictures when the weather is not nice, or is there a specific thought behind?
I feel like it's mostly linked to my studies. The fact that I'm going mostly on the summer on adventures, and in winter I try to travel where there's good weather. I think nobody's really happy when there's bad weather per se. There are some places that I've been to, for example, Faroe Islands. I went there in the pure middle of summer, and we all know that the weather there is pretty extreme. It can go from very sunny to very moody, or even like pretty intensely raining in 10 minutes. So no, I feel like it's more linked to the time at which I'm going on adventure during the year. But of course, like if I see that it's getting like super bad weather in the mountains, I won't necessarily go there on my first choice.
That's actually understandable. I hate rain myself too.
Yeah, the cameras hate it as well. That's also why I'm saying this.
So you're using Instagram as a medium, I think, of, let's say, communicating with the outside world and showing off also your pictures. And I would also want to just use this opportunity to talk a bit with you about Instagram. You have 20,000 followers, I think, roughly on Instagram. You are also featured quite often. So when I was preparing this podcast, I found a post by Blick Heimat with a photo from Hoher Kasten in Alpstein, which was pretty cool. So there was good, you or at least Blick did good search engine optimization for Fabiano Mancesti. And to enter this discussion, I wanted to ask you the maybe a bit silly initial question. While all other people check your Instagram, when have you been the last time on Instagram?
Oh, I'm checking Instagram pretty regularly, to be honest. Not too much. I feel like the Instagram has dramatically shifted to an other type of platform, mainly being TikTok driven rather than Instagram driven. So I'm spending definitely less time than before on this app, and the algorithm changed quite a bit as well, which means that photos are not the main. This is not what Instagram is pushing at the moment. To my greatest despair, that's also part. I mean, maybe gonna discuss about it like afterwards, but like this is also a reason why I switched to some kind of video creation as well.
Mm-hmm.
It was a good excuse, let's say it this way. But Instagram, what I liked about Instagram before, so when I gained so many, my following base basically, it was mainly putting pictures in a forward. You were following your creators that you liked, getting inspired by them, trying to replicate, to getting really like exchanging with them sometimes, which is really cool. And now I feel like it's getting more out of hand in a certain sense, saying that like now it's more of a randomized algorithm where the watch time is the master word. I feel like I was loving it more when it was still chronological in terms of how pictures appeared on your feed.
So, do you also think about the composition on the pictures that you upload on your Instagram? Is there like a philosophy behind? Because I think this gets a bit lost also when there's randomized uh, you know posts.
I'm not sure exactly what you mean by this.
When I look at your Instagram, at least on your profile, it looks there a huge lot of pictures, and I'm just asking myself, is there like something, a philosophy behind? Do you focus on something very specific, or do you always try to, do you try to appear the same, that all pictures look a bit, that they're edited similarly, or or is there something, a language that would differentiate your profile from another profile?
That's actually the really great question. It's also hard to answer because we as creators try to develop our own style. It could be through editing, it could be through frame, type of subject, it could be a type of, I don't know, a composition, or it could be anything actually that could differentiate yourself. But I feel like it's a mix. My style has constantly been updated, developed. Sometimes, I mean, I tried some other things. So now it's been maybe 2 years that I'm finally able to say that it's my style. But it took me 8 years before that to reach that level. And I think it's gonna still evolve at some point.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah, definitely. I don't see it as a negative to switch and to change and to experiment. Rather, it's more the contrary. But I'm trying to be minimalist in my approach because landscape can become pretty crowded, or can be very. There's a lot of elements, so I'm trying to keep it at the minimal, on the minimal side, and I think this worked quite well. I tried to include like some teal and orangey look, not too much because it's a style that a lot of people are currently achieving. I'm really trying to stay minimal and develop my own style. I don't really I just make sure that it looks good on my feed, that it resembles what I'm doing and what I love doing.
It looks actually, or I think at the first picture we discussed, I think this minimalistic approach is really reflected, right? Because it's the one church, it's the hill which is basically black, and then there's the light. So I feel like this is really. Is it something when you take pictures? Is it something you actively think about? I have to be minimalistic, or is it just something over time that turned out to be um, a regular pattern in the pictures?
Well, I think it's both. I think it's I mean, I have one way of saying if a picture can become good, or if it has the potential to do so. Basically, by slightly closing my eyes and just making sure that I don't see really clear, as if the focus was not made on the subject. And by doing so, you can really see the patterns around the environment, and you can really see where a subject can shine. Also, using our legs, it seems stupid to say it this way, but like our legs are basically our best tool. Getting around a tree, lowering ourselves, maybe hiding behind something, and all those techniques can be achieved through that. But I feel like, yeah, we have to use everything possible to create what's achieving best our style, basically.
And I think it's also a lot of experimenting, right? I feel like
Of course,
if you take one picture, or the picture that is posted is maybe one of many that you chose in the end, be the one that you would like to promote or that you would like to share with the outside world.
it's less and less with over time, which is a great thing, because beforehand I was taking 1,500 pictures of one place and getting maybe two of that were great. Now the ratio is much better. I would say, like, I try to having at least one picture out of 5 that I take for landscape, not maybe for sports, because it's a complete different mindset when shooting. But for landscape, I really try to, every picture that I take is the one that's gonna be landing on my either social media or portfolio, or yeah.
So talking about also your follower number, which is I think quite impressive. How did you achieve that? Because you're not even posting things about yourself. I feel like on Instagram there's also this personal cult, and you're doing quite the opposite. I think there is no picture of yourself or your face on Instagram. So do you have a hypothesis why it still went, let's say, viral?
It didn't go viral per se. I think viral is about posting one video and it turns out to be landing on, I don't know, like 2 million, 5 million people on the page, which wasn't my case. I think it was more gradual. It was more exchanging a lot with people, trying to be active on social media. It wasn't the like for like or follow for follow rule, which is not working anymore, which is a great thing in my opinion. I felt like it was really, I was growing at a constant pace, slowly but surely, and I'm very happy about this.
Is it also for you confirmation? If you get likes in your pictures, because I saw some pictures have, I think, over 2,000 likes, the others have a couple hundred. Does it, do you like a picture more or less if that happens, or is it really you don't care actually? You just want to share and listen also to what others think, not only by double clicking a picture.
I think it's going to be really painful for you as a photographer if you are focusing on the likes, because it's not something that is up to you. It's something, it depends on the hour where you post it, the number of hashtags, and which hashtags, for example, you're posting. It depends on a lot of factors that you can't even control yourself. So I feel like you should shoot for yourself, and then hopefully it's getting viral. I have some pictures that I didn't really like that turned out to be my best pictures on my. I mean that performed well on my social media. And on the reverse side, my best pictures that I took, in my opinion, are the ones that performed less, maybe. But I think it tells a lot about if you want to really perform on social media, I think you have to put your mindset in a totally other perspective, and sometimes selling your concept and replacing it to something else, maybe something that is going to be attracting more. The question that you mentioned before, I feel like if I had put myself more behind the pictures rather than, in front of the picture, sorry, instead of behind the pictures, could have worked better, but I decided explicitly not to do, because I like my privacy as well. And 20k followers is not a lot if you just look at all the influencer you can get. From 2 million on, I think you can become really famous. But 20k is not a lot. If you put it into perspective, my home, where I basically grew, the city, the nearby city where I grew was a small place called Nyon. It's about 20k people. So having 20k on Instagram followers is the equivalent of a small city in Switzerland in terms of inhabitants. So it's definitely not a lot to being called an influencer per se.
But I still think, you shouldn't play yourself down too much, because in the end, it was 20,000 people who decided, I want to see more pictures of yourself, right? But I totally respect the position, that you don't want to over exaggerate and put it in perspective. And I also particularly liked what you said about, focusing what you can control and what you can control, which is the number of likes. But what you can't control is the type of you, or the way of you taking pictures. So I think this is really a great approach. Now, how did you develop that? Was it something that just for yourself? Because I think Instagram can be very tempting, right? For doing it differently.
Oh, sure. No, I think it's coming through time, through a little bit of maturity as well, I guess.
Yeah.
At the beginning, when I was performing 400 likes on a picture, I would delete it instantly. Now, when I have 400 likes, I'm pretty happy about it. But that's also how the algorithm changed. So, and coming back just to the influencer, not putting myself down. It's not about putting myself down, but I just hate the word influencer. I feel like having an influence.
People do today.
Exactly, but like having influence on someone is something rather negative, in my opinion. I don't like to control people. I like them to just freely decide on what they're doing, and it's not because I'm going to the far lands that they have to go there necessarily. So I feel like, that's why I'm not liking this term so much.
Let's move on to something you like more, definitely. And I hope it should be your pictures. And I have a third picture with me. And after this, we will talk also more about photography. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Regarding the third photo, I'm going to describe it to you again, and as soon as it rings a bell, you just go ahead. So it's a very simplistic picture again, I think. So you're really following what you're walking the talk, if you want so. It is shooted in the mountain again, so in nature. Once again, maybe we can talk about this pattern as well later. It's rocks. It's a formation of rocks, but one rock is really, is like peaking in this line of rocks. And the interesting, or what makes this picture very fascinating, is that behind this rock there is this huge moon.
Yeah.
And
you don't need to go further in the sense.
Okay, so go ahead.
No, it was actually those type of photos. So just to explain a little bit the setting, I was staying at passing the night at the Cabane de la Neuve, which is in the canton of Valais, so Wallis in German. And it's a really awesome place. And I was just shooting the cabane, the hut basically, in the morning at the sunrise. And then suddenly my friend who was there next to me just pointed at me the moon that was just rising above the mountain level. And I was like, okay, I saw when it's like this in the distance, a very few steps can lead to a complete different composition. And I wanted the moon to be standing right behind the big peak that I took. And so I just did a few steps, actually not that much, maybe 50 meters or so, just to get it perfectly aligned, and then just captured it, I guess. So yeah, it's those moments that you can't really predict in advance. You could, if you really want to, with like apps like PhotoPills, for example, which is a very famous app amongst photographers. But planning is not necessarily going hand in hand with creativity and sometimes also like just enjoying your stay in the mountains.
So, how much post-production, is in those pictures? Because they really seem like to be very magical, somehow, because they're so intensive. This is what I think. This is something that really is outstanding in what you or outstanding for yourself, for your style, is this intensity of the color. But maybe I'm also just being deceived by post-production or by my unknowledge about how to
No,
take pictures professionally.
thank you for asking this question because it's going to clarify a lot of things. Most things that you see on Instagram are edited. My pictures are all edited, and most of the friends that I know are all editing their pictures. The reason is because when we are shooting our photos, we shoot in a very flat profile, which is called RAW. It basically captures all the information from the sensor of your camera, and that just it's compressing them in a format which is a RAW format. This format per se, you can't read it on your computer, and you can't read it directly on your phone, which means that you are obliged to edit it. You can shoot in JPEG, but buying a 5K camera just for shooting JPEG is not an option. And I think you can recover a lot, and it's part of our style. People saying like, yeah, but it's edited and so on. It's not even a real picture. I feel like there's two different types of editing. There's like color editing, which we do, which I do generally speaking in 99.9% of my photos, is using a how do you say this software called Lightroom. Lightroom is all about editing the lights, maybe slightly the composition. You have slider like contrast, saturation, all that stuff. You can modify slightly the colors. I think this is part of what makes a good photographer or not. It's what defines us as an artist and as a that develops our own style. But what I hate doing is compositing in Photoshop, for example. This is a more advanced software for photo manipulation, where you can basically add elements from another picture or completely transform the image, which I'm not really into, because then I wouldn't. I mean, why going to the mountains if you can do it from your home? You know what I mean? Yeah.
So is the goal, also to create pictures that are perceived as if they were shot and without post-production, or is the goal rather, to make it beautiful in your eyes again, or to make it, let's say, satisfying for you to see?
I think it's a perfect mix between both, trying to mitigate your own style with what's the beauty of nature that is already there per se. So yeah, I feel like it's a perfect mix, and we have to find the right combination between your style and what's already present in nature.
And I think we discovered this, throughout the last three pictures, is really this nature theme. And also when you look at your Instagram, it's the nature theme that really is, I think, that caught your mind. Why so? What is the thing that you appreciate so much, about photographing in nature? I think in the beginning you said that you were hiking a lot. So
I started hiking a lot. Most people think that I like hiking, but I like photography. And most of the times, my reward for hiking is photography. So landing in a beautiful spot at the end of the day or at sunrise. And I would never, I'm not sure yet, but maybe I would not stay in a tent for a few nights just for doing it. It's more like for doing some photos in the sunset and sunrise, which are the most beautiful lighting conditions of the day. So no, I feel like it's just I like hiking, but I like nature. Nature is very present in my photography because, nature is beautiful. Especially in Switzerland, we have the chance in living in a beautiful country. Like, we have mountains, we have lakes, we have countryside, we have a really great diversity of landscapes, and this is something that I really like to capture. And I like to capture time. When you are taking a photo of a glacier, for example, you are freezing time. On this picture, it's going to exist forever, while the glacier is going to be melting pretty soon. So this is also a topic that I like to consider when taking photos, is freezing time at a certain moment that is beautiful to my eyes.
But as an opposing opinion, and maybe to provoke you a bit, you could also say, that beautiful moments are there to be lived and not to be, captured, and that you have to be focused and, I need to now take the right picture, I need to the right perspective, the right position. And rather you could just sit there and enjoy what's happening, right? What do you think about that?
And it's actually a really nice question, and I think this is a topic that changes through time. When I said about maturity and the fact of taking less pictures but like more meaningful, is try to reflect. This is basically my workflow when going into the mountains. I generally keep my camera in my backpack until I have a very specific moment in time that I really wish to capture. But my camera stays in my backpack for maybe 80% or 90% even of my all the hikes that I'm doing. And I'm just, when I reach, for example, a hut or a specific spot that I have into mind, or something that will contribute to the storytelling of the adventure, this is where I would keep my camera or bring my camera up to the action. So I try to using it as little as possible, but as much as necessary.
That's actually a nice sentence. And what do you think? Because I guess the hikes you do are maybe not necessarily hikes nobody else can do. So I guess you most of the time you use public roads. And why do you think there's people who miss those moments, where they could take a picture, or where they, because I think it needs a bit of attentiveness also, just to stand still, watch and look and appreciate, and then take the picture, and while others would just rush through. Did you make yourself, an opinion on that, or do you have a take on that?
I think I'm more and more going to places that not a lot of people can reach. When you start photography, you are always wanting to go, for example, to Blauze in the canton of Bern. It's a beautiful place, don't get me wrong, but after a while you start seeing a lot of people going to there. You have to pay an entry fee.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you do, and it's pretty expensive. So when you see all those people going there, taking pictures there, you see that there's no reward to it. It's basically just you paid the price and then you took the picture because it's a outstanding place.
It's maybe more like consumption.
Exactly. It's exactly this. So I would rather now shift my focus rather more to going in the long types of hikes, places where not everyone can reach. Not really so much into mountaineering for now, but I feel like this could be a step in the future, trying to explore new heights as well. Over time, and I'm getting higher and higher up in the mountains. But yeah, I feel like not using too much the mountain lifts and so on is also a part of the process where you even more enjoy your picture afterwards.
I see. Wonderful. The next question that I have is really, you talked a lot about storytelling, or not a lot, but you mentioned storytelling. So I feel like I have to really ask a question on that.
Please do so.
Pictures are moments in time, right?
Sure.
So, and storytelling is rather a process over time. And do you have the ambition to tell a story with the pictures you take, also with the multiple pictures you have, or is it like a photo book, or is there something that is like a red line? In Germany we would say roter Faden, which would correct maybe be more like storytelling.
It actually, there's no proper answer to this. I think there are, for example, if you are creating a photo book, or if you are trying to build a portfolio for a brand, you might not try to get all the storytelling elements in one picture only. You might as well try to build something like if you are scrolling down a web page, the story starts unfolding like a movie in a certain sense. And sometimes brands ask that all the storytelling elements are present in one picture. So
what would be those elements? Just maybe, sorry for interrupting.
It could be anything. Like, for example, if you are working, I mean, I was used to work also for a sports equipment company in Switzerland. They asked us to create some stories about maybe think of a process of like pitching a tent, standing outside, doing some cooking, or don't know, like just putting on your vest because it's getting cold. They are giving you a lot of elements, and you try to replicate them and putting them all in one in the picture. It could be with multiple subjects. It could be with, it could be also without any subject, like just the tent and the cooking shelves and so on. Like it could be anything. So I feel like this is actually the creative part of storytelling, and it's a decision that you take wisely to create some emotions.
is it how do you learn that, you know? Is it experience or just talent, or
Oh, I feel
did you
like,
read
I
books?
mean, for my part, I think everyone is different in how they learn photography and storytelling. My way was mainly through YouTube,
Oh, really?
also workshops. For example, I can do a small ad also for this creator that I really like.
Go ahead.
He's called Alex Stroll. He's a French photographer originally, and he now lives in Montana. Um, he has done a lot of workshops, online workshops about storytelling, how to create emotions while taking pictures, how to best utilize your moment to, yeah, to create, to build passion around a picture.
So you mentioned that you would only, take out your camera 10-20% of the time while you're hiking. But still, I could imagine that sometimes you maybe still are waiting for the perfect moment, right? Um, I can imagine that you need a lot of patience, and also, what runs through your mind while you wait for the picture? Is it just pure excitement for, I don't know, the X minutes you wait, or is it do you contemplate about ideas, or do you have emotions, or what happens in the time you're waiting? Because I could imagine it's sometimes also just boring, to wait.
Depends in which setting. In the mountains, you're not really bored because the only moments where would love to take your camera out is basically at sunset or at blue hour, which is the the I mean, it's a blue atmosphere that just comes right after
After the sun,
sunset.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly, or before the sunrise.
Yeah.
Those are the moments you really want to capture and be present for photography. But for the rest of the time, I don't feel like I'm waiting too much. I have a huge respect for wildlife photographers because standing in the cold, in the rain, in the wind, in every type of weather condition, and waiting for that moment where an animal that you don't even know, you can't expect him to come at a certain point because it's unpredictable. And just waiting till it happens, and your whole goal is to capture this moment. I feel like this is something I have huge respect to because I wouldn't be able to do it.
But you told me beforehand that you were starting to get into sports photography, and I could also imagine it is similar there because you cannot anticipate what happens on the playing ground, right? But I mean, obviously, something will happen for sure. You're not waiting for nothing, but still, it's kind of you have to be very attentive, right?
I feel like it's a different type of photography than landscape or even wildlife
Yeah.
because it is predictable in some sense because you are exchanging a lot with the athletes that you're shooting. You are trying to find the best solution to a particular setting environment. For example, can you jump there? Can you go downhill? For example, in this turn, and I'm going to be standing in the car in front in the trunk. I mean, it's all about problem solving and a lot about communication. So I feel like you're not too much waiting for the moment when you are a sports photographer, when you are exchanging a lot with the athletes.
So, what was the decision, or why did you decide to, you know, expand basically your expertise?
What's funny is you think that my main interest started with landscape photography, while the story why I started photography is a little bit different. Actually, I was doing a lot of free running and parkour when I was maybe, I don't know, 12, 13. And then I had a knee problem that started to appear. And I had to stop training with my team, basically, that I was always training with. And so, very quickly, instead of not coming and not attending all the meetings that we had in team, I grabbed the camera and started shooting with them. So, actually, my first introduction to photography was free running and sports photography in this sense.
So you basically came back again to your roots, if you want
Exactly.
so.
Exactly.
Wow. So, to close maybe this photography part, um, I have maybe a bit more open question. So, photography for me is always a game also of perspectives, that you choose or that you have to select and also actively deselect things you don't want to take a picture of and select select motives that you wanna depict. So how does this process, take place? You touched upon it before briefly, just 50, like moving some meters can change your perspective totally, but is there anything else you could add on there?
there's two ways that I see of changing perspective or trying to get a different shot out of the same scene. Um, One of them being the legs, as I mentioned before,
Yeah.
like try to walk around and trying to go in a higher spot or a lower spot, lower angle than the natural eye is. If you are walking in the street and try to take a picture like while standing, generally speaking, it's not going to be really something that most people will find inspiring because it's a view that they could have potentially have gotten at some point. So I like to crawl in very tight spaces around the spots, trying to get a very original angle from the situation. And most of the time it works because it's places where no one is getting the head on. And yeah, also I'm also working a lot with a friend of mine, one of my best friends actually, and he's a really creative shooter. She's the one that's gonna find the most amazing angles. He's really creative, and I'm more on the technical part. So when we are shooting together, I feel like we achieve magic because I make his vision true, and he turns a little bit. He brings me a lot of perspective on another type of vision. So working together as a team is also something that can help you as a photographer. Not being alone, but with a team.
Is he also someone you would look up to, or is there somebody else that is inspiring you? You also mentioned Alexander. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, in most cases, when I land into another photographer, it's someone that has another perspective. It's really rare that I just walk onto someone that has the same perspective as myself. And everyone has its own style, and I feel like this is also part of the knowledge that you can acquire during photography is working with other photographers, trying to trying to see how they work in their workflow, in their creative side, their ideas that they might prepare before the shooting, the editing, and everything makes it so interesting, especially when you are getting when you're getting to know like incredible photographers that have a lot of experience, for example.
So, besides you doing photography, or you're a HSG student, right? And we're here in the HSG Student Podcast. What we regularly do is also to play games. I play games with my guests. I have 2 games left, so let's play the first one before we go into the final round, if you want so, of today. And the game is this HSG sentences game. So I give you the start of a sentence. So it's something about HSG and what you do, and you can just end it spontaneously, whatever comes up to your mind.
Okay,
wonderful. So, if I had to take a photo of something on the HSG campus, I would go for, or I would focus on
the square and the architectural style of the university, which is really particular.
As a HSG dean or president, I would introduce.
Well, that's actually a super tricky question because, in my opinion, it's already really well made. You can create some clubs at the university. I was thinking of creating a photography club at the university as well. No, I think you have a lot of freedom of what you can do already. And I don't think that building something or creating something would change much to this situation. I feel like we are pretty lucky.
After HSG, I would like to.
That's also a really tricky question. I would love to continue in the photography business and working aside in the marketing domain. So I think it goes hand in hand. I don't see myself doing only photography, and I don't see myself only doing marketing. I will find something that mitigates the two.
When I don't take photographs, when I don't study, I
do photography and some sports as well. And I love eating as well.
And the last sentence, my favorite piece of art, if there's one, on campus is
the statues at the entrance of the university, like before arriving to the main building. I feel like those are pretty impressive.
Oh, I actually, on the last time I was on a art, how do you say, a guided art tour
nice.
At university with Professor Sanchez, and I think she He explained um, this art piece as well, those sculptures, and I think they have quite a lot of problems because it rains a lot in St. Gallen, right? And somehow those sculptures they disassemble over time because it's a special material. So I found it pretty fascinating too.
Yeah, indeed. I think they are quite impressive, and it's. I mean, there's a lot of art, and the culture of art at the university is pretty impressive. There was also the Giacometti, which is a little bit hidden to the public if you're not doing the guided tour, which is pretty amazing. But I feel like it's nicely made. But I feel like the building of the HSG is really impressive, and we can consider it as an art piece as well.
Did you consider to take pictures of HSG? At some point, I think you did a lot of photography for clubs and events, but like just the simple building. Did you consider that as well once, or
maybe not for my personal portfolio as a landscape photography, because I'm not really into architecture photography, or I am, but like when it's combined with sport photography or shooting an athlete, for example. But I feel like the uni is a great spot. I did quite a lot of photos, like you said, for clubs, for the sports and so on on the campus. And I must say that the square is also a nice place to do so. So no, I think it's a really nice place to be for taking pictures as well.
Let's focus for the final couple minutes on the future. Talked a lot about how you do it today, but what is the future bringing to Mr. Mancesti? Is it what is the next move you want to take? You already touched upon a bit, or video content creation and sports photography again. What's up in your mind?
I've been always fascinated by, for example, National Geographics. I feel like they have brought so much light onto unknown cultures, unknown places on Earth, on wildlife, and I feel like at some point in my life I would love to get onto an expedition with them and try to capture also the moment and freeze a certain moment in time.
I really hope that this will happen. I'm closely following your way, and I think before I let you go, I think we should just talk about another picture.
Yeah, let's do that then.
Okay, the last picture. And I think we're substituting this picture for the HSG story cubes that you would usually do in the end. So let me explain you the picture. I think it will be quite easy because it's a very famous motif that you took. So I think you're standing on a mountain, and you have a quite wide sight, and there's the sky is cloudy. The mountain, you're in the mountains, obviously, and there's a lot of snow. It's a bit. I think it's a glacier.
Okay.
Did you ever take a picture of a glacier that you can remember?
I took a lot of pictures on glaciers.
So I think it's the largest glacier in Switzerland, I think, and maybe the most impressive one.
I think we were talking about the Aletsch Glacier.
Yes. Do you remember this picture? I think you have multiple of them as well, but it's actually quite not melancholic, but dark atmosphere. It's kind of as if the world will be crumbling soon.
So funny thing about this picture is I took it with my phone.
Really?
It was a trip that I did with my father quite recently, actually. I think it was in April or May, even maybe June. I can't exactly remember when, but we went on a small trip, and it's actually my first time going to the Aletsch Glacier. It was for 5 years on my bucket list, and I didn't have the time properly, or I wasn't really in the area every time. So I felt like it was a great moment discovering this beautiful glacier. So also sad to some extent because like we can see how much it just yeah, exactly, how it melts. I wish we could go back in some periods where the glacier was better looking. But yeah, this picture was taken on iPhone, and it was a trip that I really wanted to try, just capturing mood with my iPhone and with a film camera, the one from my granddad. and I repaired it, and it somehow worked perfectly. So it was a great combination. And to answer one of the most frequent questions that I have, if you had only a very small budget to start photography, what would you take as a camera?
An iPhone.
Not maybe an iPhone. iPhone are really great. I must tell, this is what I'm using. But like, use your phone, shoot in RAW, edit it on your phone, and it's gonna be doing wonders if you are using your legs appropriately. And I think it could be really your first camera. Not sure if I could use it professionally, because you would look a little bit dumb going to a wedding with a wedding shoot with an iPhone. But I feel like it's an amazing camera, and we should always try to do with what's at hand. So, and you always have your phone at hand. So
I have actually another last question. It just came up my mind, and it is, if there's anything in the world that you could capture, or any moment that you'd like to capture, is there something that comes up to your mind?
Choosing only one is
Or maybe not the one, just one of the many you'd like to, if there are multiple you can think of.
I think there's one thing that I really want to capture, is going to South Georgia, which is in the near the Antarctic, and it's actually one of the few lands where you can't really get a tourism access to it. This is why also I was mentioning National Geographic or any scientific entity that goes into those regions. I would love to discover this place, because it's the land of penguins. They are everywhere, like hundreds of thousands that are just living their best life there. And I feel like sharing such a moment where only a very few number of people had steps on is something truly special. And in terms of freezing time, I can't get a better place in my mind that could result in such a emotional moment for me.
Well, that's a wonderful closing remark. Thank you so much, Fabiano.
Thanks to you, it was amazing. A nice experience for me, because it was also my first podcast that I was onto. So thanks for that. Thanks for this experience.
You did wonderfully. And yeah, thank you once again for sharing all, your wisdom and your passion. I think even though you cannot see him, I hope you could have, you now heard it. I think Fabiano is maybe one of the most passionate person I know about the thing, what he's doing. So it was a real pleasure to have you here. And thank you so much for coming. And to all other people out there, thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to send us feedback, recommendations you'd like to listen to, or anything else that you'd like to let us know or let me know. You can contact me on LinkedIn or wherever. And of course, Fabiano, all his social media will be, will be linked to our posts on social media as well. And yeah, thank you so much for tuning in, and have a great day.
Thanks a lot. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.